Hello, this is Miss Winters, and today I will be performing an overview on the modeling how to use TPCASTT as a poem analysis method. Today, we will be using the poem Wendigo by Louise Erdrich as a model. Before we begin, let us note that T stands for title, P paraphrase, C connotation, A attitude, S shift, T, title revisited, and lastly, T for theme. These are all factors that we will be analyzing within the poem. So, the first T is for title, and we will be making an inference on what we believe the title is about in correlation to the poem. I infer the title Wendigo is about fancy chicken wings or an ethnic tribe. Notice that I have my name here in parentheses. When I place you in groups, please know that everyone is responsible for this portion. Okay? Therefore, everyone needs to ensure that they place their name in parentheses on the template. I would advise you all to each assign each other different colors. That way, it will be easy to differentiate everyone's responses. Next, we have P for paraphrase, meaning we must put this poem in our own words. We are not summarizing this poem by reviewing the poem and highlighting its main points, but we are literally going back to this poem here and we are putting it in our own words. Not every word is going to be able to be paraphrased, but 90% of the words should be. I'm not going to read my paraphrase part in its entirety, okay? However, you will receive a copy of this if you need further clarification. So what I will do is I will read a few of the original stanzas, and every time I read a stanza from Louise Erdrich's poem Wendigo, I will go back on the template and read what I have written down. For Angela, the Wendigo is a flesh-eating, wintry demon with a man buried deep inside of it. In some Chippewa stories, a young girl vanquishes this monster by forcing boiling lard down its throat, thereby releasing the human at the core of ice. Addressed to Angela, the Wendigo is a frosty, demonic carnivore who conceals a human in his womb. Some Native American tribe narratives describe a young girl defeats the villain by compelling scorching fat down its windpipe, in which freed the human from its icy nucleus. You knew I was coming for you, little one. When the kettle jumped into the fire, towels flapped on the hooks and the dog crept off, groaning, to the deepest part of the woods. You realize I was approaching you, youngling, when the boiler lurched into the fire. Rags dangled from the fasteners, and the dog snuck away murmuring, far into the depths of the woods. In the hackles of dry bush, a thin laughter started up. Mother scolded the food warm and smooth in the pot and called you to eat. But I spoke in the cold trees. New one, I have come for you. Child, hide and lie still. In between the leaves of the moistureless shrubbery, a light-hearted chuckle was initiated. Ma burnt the food and stirred it evenly in the boiler and appointed you to devour. However, I voiced in the freezing forest, Rookie, I have a ride for you. Youngling, camouflage, and lounge unwavering. The sumac pushed sour red cones through the air. Copper burned in the raw wood. You saw me drag toward you. Oh, touch me, I murmured, and licked the soles of your feet. You dug your hands into my pale melting fur. The autumn plant ejected red cones in the atmosphere. Copper incinerated in the bonfire. You witnessed my draw towards you. Oh, converge me. I whispered, and tasted the bottom of your feet. Your hands engaged profoundly into my colorless, liquefying fluff. Okay? So you notice that I put this within my own words, and we only want you to actually paraphrase what's happening. Okay? Again, reiterating, putting it in your own words. Now, when you look here, I have a tab open for thesaurus. I use thesaurus.com to help me so I can actually find words that dictate the exact meaning the author is trying to convey. All right? Moving forward, we have C, connotation. When we're talking about connotation, we are going to be examining meaning. However, we're going to focus on figurative language. When we talk about figurative language, we're talking about language being conveyed in a manner that's not literal. Okay? So, as you've noticed here in purple, I have a list of different devices. Some you may be familiar with, some unfamiliar with. Either way, it's okay. All right? So what you'll notice is that on Google Classroom, if you were to go there, and I know this says section 101, but this is for 102 as well. If you click on classwork, first quarter resources, you'll notice that on October the 9th, I placed figurative language anchor charts here. So you can take the time to review the definitions and exemplars on your own to get a fair understanding of the actual figurative language devices. So what I did was, after getting an understanding of what each figurative language device is, I went and identified figurative language devices that were within the story. For example, I found an analogy. Steam rolled from my wintry arms, each leaf shivered from the bushes. We passed until they stood naked, spread like the cleaned spines of fish. This is a quote, so I put it in quotation marks. I put sick here because the spelling is off, but I didn't want it to lose the quote's context, okay? Because we're not supposed to change quotes. So this is optional, but it's nice to get in the habit of knowing proper grammar mechanics. Also, you will have to ensure that you place the location of where you're receiving this information from, via the stanza and the line or lines the information is in. Okay, this is an analogy because it is basically comparing the monster actually like bulldozing through the bushes and making them like naked in comparison to fish bones, like clean fish bones. So these are the two objects that it's comparing with this analogy, which makes it one. So I'm not going to review the rest of these, but you'll notice that those that were not in the actual poem, I put N/A, which means non-applicable. Okay? All right. Next, we have A for attitude. This is where we're examining the tone or tones. The attitude can be described as mythological, dark, and apprehensive. The foreword of the characterization of Wendigo, and a foreword is basically a brief introduction prior to the actual poem, this area right here, captures all the aforementioned tones. The myth of Wendigo's darkness as a carnivore and the apprehensiveness readers can infer it must instill on children further supports this notion. Okay? So mythological, dark, and apprehensive. Sometimes you'll have more than one tone to support what the author is trying to convey. And when we're talking about tones, we're talking about feelings that the author is trying to convey for us, the readers. Okay? Next is shift. So when we're examining shifts, we're looking to see if there were any changes within a poem via keywords, punctuation, mood, stanza, irony, etc. in this column. So here I stated yes, two shifts occur. In stanza 4, line 16, Urgent states, quote, I stole you off a huge thing in my bristling armor. This is the climax where we, the readers, realize that the monster has captured the child and its ploy has been fully orchestrated. Additionally, in stanza 5, lines 21 through 24, Erdős continues, I would darken and spill all night running, until at last morning broke the cold earth and I carried you home, a river shaking in the sun. This segment shifts the tone of apprehensiveness being inflicted on the child onto the monster. Metaphorically speaking, the river symbolizes the monster and the sun symbolizes fear. One can strongly infer that the sun weakens the monster, being that its characterization is icy and he had to rush to its habitat before morning fully arose. The conflict of the child being kidnapped no longer focuses on the child and shifts to the monster attempting to escape the sun as well for possibly survival and strength. Okay? Title revisited. Now, here's where we actually connect the title after analyzing the poem at this point. After reviewing the title, Wendigo, I can connect that it is the name of a mythological monster in Native American culture who is a carnivore and lives while carrying a human being in its womb. Furthermore, the account is told in the first person by this particular creature and the internal conversation he or it has about his or its ploy upon kidnapping a child. And lastly, we have theme. What is the overall main idea or message that the actual poem is conveying? So I chose fear. And then we talk about universal theme is basically now a main idea or message that can be applied anywhere, okay, for all like cross cultures. And here I have fear comes in many forms, or fear does not discriminate. Anyone or anything can become a victim of fear. And I will also give you a list to further help you if you're struggling to figure out what type of universal theme applies for your poem that you will be analyzing in the near future. Okay? And then a morality quote. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. A nice nin, and intimidators can be intimidated too, by Miss Winter. So here we want to actually find a quote that ties into the morality of fear in co-alignment to the poem. Okay? And that's pretty much it. So basically, I know I didn't explain in the group who's going to assign what for the rest. However, you all are mature enough to do so, okay? And if not, I will assist you in how to divide it. But there needs to be equity in completing all of this information some way, somehow. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope this helps. Have a great day.